Hi, today we'll talk about wicket problems. They are hugely important today because the nature of problems is changing. In this session, we'll be covering what are wicket problems, implications for policy making, and we'll talk about the case of COVID-19, which requires multi-pronged strategy and can be termed as a wicket problem. So, what is a wicket problem? The term wicket problem was first coined by Horst Rittel. He was a design theorist and professor of design methodology sometime in 1970s. These problems are ill-defined as both the problem and the solution are unknown at the outset of the problem solving exercise. These cut across the traditional jurisdiction of organizations, divisions of responsibilities between layers of government, and the boundaries between the public, private, and societal domains. These are characterized by both knowledge uncertainty and value conflicts. We have already discussed the concept of radical uncertainty, which raises two fundamental questions: how to face unknown unknowns and how to face known unknowns. Every wicket problem can be considered to be a symptom of another problem. Some characteristics of wicket problems. Wicket problems are difficult to clearly define. They have many interdependencies and are often multi-causal. Attempts to address wicket problems often lead to unforeseen consequences. They are often not stable and usually have no clear solution. They are socially complex and involve changing behavior. They hardly ever sit conveniently within the responsibility of any one organization. In order to address wicket problems, it is necessary to enhance consensus about the nature of the problem and the status of the scientific knowledge needed for its solution. They require a shift from a more traditional top-down way of solving problems to a more horizontal cooperative approach. The COVID-19 pandemic can best be described as a wicket problem. The entire world is affected. There are so many unknown unknowns. We have no idea of the societal and economic repercussions from the shutdowns of this nature, and no meaningful way of assigning probabilities, nor of how people's behavior will evolve. Each country has responded depending on the advice that it received from experts, domestic or international, demographic conditions, state of economy, etc. We can compare countries and organizations in how they have reacted. Is everyone right? Is everyone wrong? However, at this point, the question should be, is everyone doing the best they can do under these circumstances? There are certainly things that can be done to mitigate any negative effects. Important is how the problem is structured. How has been the policy response to COVID-19? The threat of COVID-19 to public health is a clear problem. However, the scope of the problem of the pandemic goes beyond health and affects many aspects of our society and economy. World economies have come to a virtual standstill. Unemployment rates in formal and informal sectors have worsened, and people across the globe are looking towards their respective governments for support. Everything, social interactions, government recommendations, knowledge of the disease are often changing each day. India's response has been discussed world over. India went into a sudden lockdown. The lockdown was followed by both RBI and the central government offering measures to deal with this sudden stop in almost all economic activity. RBI provided liquidity support to keep businesses from becoming insolvent, and the central government provided similar measures as well as direct transfers. We can look at some select sectors. We can start with health sector. In the 2019 Global Health Security Index, which measures pandemic preparedness for countries based on their ability to handle the crisis, India ranked 57. India's low investment in the health sector, committing only 1.3% of its GDP, is far less than South Korea that spends 8.1%, Japan spends 10.9%, and the US spends around 8.5%. India's nationwide lockdown in March, which was extended for 21 days, was aimed at borrowing time to make necessary preparations. Experts say that the lockdown slowed the speed of the transmission of infection and bought some time for the health infrastructure to meet the challenge posed by the pandemic. At the start of the pandemic, the testing capacity and the protective gear were meager. There were 1105 testing labs in the country, comprising 788 in the public sector and 317 private labs as on July 6. The per day testing capacity, which was around 1.5 lakh on May 25, is more than 3 lakh per day now. It was in hundreds in the beginnings. The rupees 190 crore has been sanctioned for augmentation of healthcare facilities in the 8 northeastern states, especially for the management of infectious diseases like COVID-19. Testing kits which were being imported earlier are now being manufactured here. Many innovations came up, like turning railway coaches or stadium facilities into beds for COVID patients. A Coimbatore-based robotics engineer has developed a COVID-19 smart swab robot to collect test samples. PPE manufacturers are now seeking permission to export the surplus gears. If you look at information and communication, digitalization of services and extensive use of ICTs receive boost. The government introduced the Arog Setu app to educate citizens about the COVID and also use the data for tackling the crisis. Open and transparent sharing of data with scientists, public health experts and the public at large apparently benefited pandemic control measures and help in building a bottom-up consensus. Extensive awareness campaigns have been run to make people aware about the need for using masks and social distancing. Daily media briefings were held for more than 2 months with Health Ministry and Home Ministry officials and medical experts. Educational and health services are being delivered online. Delivery of essential services. Movement of goods suffered heavily. Arrangements were made to ensure supplies in containment zones. Lack of clarity in rules and their communication to the field often led to disruptions. The online companies increasingly curtailed their services as their boys were beaten up by cops. If we see the disaster aspect, the MHA is the nodal agency for pandemics. It issued the directives from time to time and kept updating them as per the knowledge available. These covered the nature of lockdowns and unlockdowns, activities which were permitted and which were not, movement of people from one place to another, decisions on zoning of districts and containment zones. States were consulted and were partners. If we talk about the economy, the services sector, especially segments such as retail, aviation and entertainment, have been directly and severely hit. The manufacturing sector too has suffered. Production shutdowns, labor and supply chain disruptions, especially for companies exposed to international trade, as well as falling consumption, have raised serious concerns about the short to medium term viability of many businesses, including the MSMEs. The government announced the Atmanirbhar Bharat. The stimulus package is pegged at 20 lakh crore, which is equivalent to 10% of India's GDP. 34,800 crore rupee financial assistance using digital payment infrastructure to about 39 crore beneficiaries under the Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Yojana relief package that allows people to make advance withdrawals on their social benefits. 200 million women with basic bank accounts got rupees 500 a month until June. 30 million senior citizens, widows and disabled got rupees 1000 each. 87 million farmers were paid rupees 2000 under an existing program. 2.2 million health workers fighting COVID-19 will get an insurance cover of rupees 50 lakh. For people earning less than rupees 50,000 a month, government will pay 24% of their monthly wages that feed into pension and provident fund accounts. Director of the IMF's Asia and Pacific Department said, IMF also supports RBI's policy responses to support financial stability and help the Indian economy cope with the fallout from this pandemic. COVID is being viewed as an opportunity. The crisis has been used to announce some needed reforms, particularly with respect to the management of food supplies, MSME sector, labor and the conduct of domestic trade in agricultural commodities. Other reform measures include opening up coal mining to private operators, liberalization of FDI in defense production and so on. It will be interesting to see how effectively these changes are implemented. Most importantly, these are medium and long term measures that may not be addressing immediate economic challenges, but then we should keep in mind that COVID is a wicked problem. Only time will tell how successful were we. Thank you.